Hello fans and friends across the universe, and welcome back to my channel from me to you. My name's Keir Smith, back today with another video, and for today's video I wanted to share with you some of my McCartney memories, and specifically memories of when I first bought my first Wings and Paul McCartney albums and what I thought of them. I bought my first Wings album when I was 15 years old, and I've collected everything obsessively ever since. But that's not to say that I think that everything that Paul McCartney has ever done is amazing, because, well, of course it isn't. There were certainly times along the way when I was listening to these albums for the first time and I had to scratch my head and think, now why on earth has he done that? And I remember reading in various Beatles books about Paul's post-Beatles albums, and I remember reading a lot of the reviews and they were either lukewarm or bad. When I think back, I can only ever remember positive reviews about Band on the Run, obviously, and Tug of War. And as I picked up these albums one by one, I would remember these reviews and think, well, they said that that one was a bit of a stinker, and I won't pick that one up yet because they said it was awful. I remember reading a review about McCartney too, and I think one reviewer said that it was the worst thing ever committed to plastic. As I'm sure many of you will know, the music critics simply tossed these albums away as meaningless pop music. And it was damaging to Paul, and it cast a shadow over these albums for a long time. And so I thought that this would make for an interesting video and tell you what I thought of these albums when I first heard them. And so I've pulled out 6 of Paul's post-Beatles albums. The first ones that I remember buying. I certainly remember the first 2. After that, I'm not quite sure what order they came in, but I think that these are the first 6. And like all good stories, we'll start at the beginning, and I'll tell you the first post-Beatles Paul album that I bought. As I said, I was 15 years old at the time, and it was a hot day in sunny Nottingham, a Saturday afternoon, and I made my way into Nottingham city centre with a bit of money that I'd saved and maybe some additional pocket money. I knew that I wanted to buy either a solo Paul McCartney album or a Wings album, and it's worth pointing out that at this point, the only thing that I'd heard by Paul McCartney was All the Best, which I thought was terrific. But of course, they're the hits. I needed an album, and I needed to see if there was any truth in these rotten reviews. And so I got off the bus and made my way up St James's Street to a second-hand music shop called Way Ahead Records. And so I went into the shop and quickly made my way over to the M section, and I was browsing through the CDs, and sure enough, I found 2 Paul McCartney and Wings albums there, Red Rose Speedway and Band on the Run. At this point, I'd read that Band on the Run was Paul's greatest post-Beatles album, the album to own. And so I stood there and I looked at both albums and I thought to myself, well, if Band on the Run is so great, then I'll tease myself and I'll wait for that. If it's so good, then the music will speak for itself, and when I get round to it, I'm sure I'll love it. And so me being me, I picked up Red Rose Speedway. Yeah, Red Rose Speedway, my first post-Beatles Paul album, credited to Paul McCartney and Wings, of course. And I remember it well. It was £5.95, which was a sizable chunk of the money that I had on me. But I was really pleased with my purchase, and I was so excited to get home and listen to it. And I remember getting the bus home and sitting on the upper deck and flicking through the booklet and looking at the track listing and thinking to myself, this better be good. So that first listen, what did I think of it? I thought it was good. I thought it was a good album. I think I wanted to like it more than I actually did. I really liked Big Barn Bed and Get on the Right Thing especially. Immediately, I thought that they were really good rock pop tunes with good Macca melodies. There are of course tracks 1 and 3 on the album, and in between those you have the stunning ballad My Love, which I was already familiar with. After that you've got One More Kiss, which I thought was good, and then you've got Little Lamb Dragonfly, which I didn't connect with at all. It seemed to go on too long and I thought that it was a bit aimless. Single Pigeon I thought was okay, slight. When the Night, again, I kind of liked it, but I thought that it could have been made into more. Oddly, I really liked Loop, First Indian on the Moon. I thought, whoa, that's a bit groovy, cool, good tune. And then the album ends with the 4-part medley, which I thought was very good, but I think at the time even I compared it to the medley on Abbey Road and thought, well, it's certainly a step down from that. And at the end of it, I was a little underwhelmed, but I thought, yeah, well, this isn't the Beatles. Well, it's certainly not as good as the Beatles, but this is a good album. I certainly like a lot of it. Red Rose Speedway, my first post-Beatles Paul album. So that certainly whet my appetite, and I was eager to hear more. And some weeks later, maybe even a month or more, I went back to Warehead Records and picked up this very copy of Band on the Run. This too was £5.95, and I've still got the receipt here, and it's faded badly. I don't think it matters how close I hold this receipt up, but this was bought on the 13th of July 1996. This certainly didn't disappoint. It's got the great opening 1-2 punch of the title track and Jet, which of course I knew from the All the Best compilation. I thought Bluebird was okay. Mrs. Vanderbilt, I loved it immediately, and Let Me Roll It, well, I thought that was the best thing since sliced bread. I thought Mamunia was lovely. I immediately fell for the charms of the rhythm of that song. Though I didn't care too much for No Words, nor for Picasso's last words, Drink to Me. I thought they were okay, nothing special. But wow, 1985, amazing. That even topped Let Me Roll It. But certainly 6 out of 9 tracks on Band on the Run there I thought were absolutely brilliant. So I got Red Rose Speedway and Band on the Run. I thought, yeah, this is good stuff. Sod the critics. Now, to be honest with you, I can't quite remember which was my 3rd or 4th album, but I think it was London Town, and I remember buying this on tape cassette in HMV in Nottingham City Centre. And I think that this was a few months after I'd picked up Band on the Run, and if I remember right, I paid something like £6.99 for it on tape cassette. Like I say, this was back in the mid-90s, and tape cassettes were still in heavy circulation back then. I actually preferred to buy things on tape cassette because back then I used to carry a tape cassette Walkman around with me. Again, I was super excited to hear the album, especially after the glory of Band on the Run. But again, I was a little bit nervous because I'd read bad reviews about it. It was certainly front-loaded. The title track, Cafe on the Left Bank, I'm Carrying. Wow, wow, wow. But then, Backwards Traveller. What? Cufflink. Right. Children. That's better. Girlfriend. Really nice. Oh, Paul McCartney wrote that. Oh, I knew that from Michael Jackson's Off the Wall album. Well, this version's a bit different, but yeah, it's good. I've had enough. Didn't like it. With a Little Luck. Wow. Sensational. What an amazing song. Famous Groupies. No. Deliver Your Children. Very good. Name and Address. I really like that. Don't Let It Bring You Down. I thought, yeah, that's good. It was a bit mellow for me. It took me a while to come round to it, but first listen, I knew that had potential. I knew that I'd end up liking it. And then Morse Moose and the Grey Goose, well, I've no idea what this is about. I'm not sure if I like it. I think I do. I do like it. I don't like it. I don't know what he's doing here, but yeah, we'll just forget that. So all in all, I didn't necessarily want to admit it, but I had to quietly say to myself that this album was indeed patchy. And I remember thinking to myself, Paul's not really doing himself any favours here with things like Backwards Traveller, Cufflink, Famous Groupies. I've Had Enough wasn't very good. It could have been, but that was underwhelming. I thought, I can't have 4 tracks on an album that aren't very good, but then I thought, I've got 4 great ones, definitely, and some good ones in between, so patchy, but on we go. So for what I think was my 4th album, again I went into Nottingham City Centre with a little bit of money in my pocket, and I went to a second-hand music store which was known as Rocket Records at the time. And again, I remember it well, for £3.50 on tape cassette, I picked up McCartney 2. And I have a vivid memory of being on my bike and going from my house to my then girlfriend's house, listening to this on my tape cassette Walkman. First track is Coming Up. I love that. I thought that was a really good song. And then we got to Temporary Secretary. I thought, what on earth is this? This bleeping madness. I thought it was embarrassing. I really liked On the Way Immediately. I thought that restores some credit. A good, gritty rocker. Waterfalls, really nice. I think I'd heard that by this point on that Paul McCartney TV special promoting Press to Play. I bought that somewhere on VHS tape cassette. Nobody Knows I didn't care for at all. And then we got to the instrumental, Front Parlour, which again I thought, this is a bit odd. It's far too playful, but it is a good tune. Summer's Day song, mellow, beautiful. And that's followed by Frozen Jap, which I likened to Front Parlour, but again, it got stuck in my head and I thought, I shouldn't like this, but this is really good fun. Bogey music, I thought, that's terrible, just silly, don't want to hear it. And that's followed by Darkroom, which was much better, but I think it suffered for me at first because it followed on from bogey music and it felt a little weird. But One of These Days at the end of the album certainly saved the day, a pure McCartney song which I loved immediately. If I thought London Town was patchy, then McCartney 2 was certainly a step down from that and was really patchy. Approach with Caution patchy. It even irritated me. I thought, this is silly. I think that my fifth album was Ram, credited to Paul and Linda McCartney. I don't know how much I paid for this, but again, I picked it up secondhand on Take Set. Now, this Take Set copy has Eat at Home and Dear Boy the wrong way round. Eat at Home follows on from Ram On, where Dear Boy should be, and Dear Boy followed on from Montgomery Moon Delight, which is where Eat at Home should have been. But of course, I didn't know that at the time, and I simply put my Take Set in and played it. Too Many People, good opener. Three Legs, I thought was even better. Ram On, I thought was really nice. And so Eat at Home came next, which I thought was, again, good, a good rocker. I enjoyed that. And then Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, I thought was absolutely fantastic. It was funny, super catchy, instantly memorable. I couldn't stop singing it. I wasn't mad on Smile Away, but I still thought it was good. It was certainly catchy enough. Heart of the Country, I thought was brilliant. Montgomery Moon Delight, I like that. Great vocal. This is odd, but really good. Dear Boy, wow, those harmonies. That was my favourite song on the album. Long Haired Lady I thought was okay, possibly my least favourite track on the album when I first heard it. It seemed to go on a little bit too long for me. Ram On Reprise, fine. Backseat of My Car, wow. Lush, beautiful, amazing song. I was obsessed with that song. That, Dear Boy and Montgomery Moon Delight, I thought, wow, these are exceptional pieces. And I think that I heard Ram at the right time. It came at an interesting point in my McCartney journey. I think at this point I was coming to terms with the fact that Paul was going to produce these odd, eccentric songs. And of course, Ram certainly has their moments, but I think I was becoming more comfortable with them and beginning to like them more. But I was really pleased about Ram, and I immediately championed it for its odd but eclectic range of songs. It wasn't perfect, but I thought it was the next best after Band on the Run. And so for my sixth album, I'm pretty sure that this one was next. Press to Play. Now this is a classic example of do not judge a book by its cover. I love the front cover. I was looking at it and thinking, what are we going to get here? Maybe a more traditional set of songs? No. But first track, Stranglehold. What a great song. Super catchy. Love that saxophone. It just swings and I thought it was super cool. Followed by Good Times Coming, Feel the Sun. I really like the Feel the Sun section. I like Good Times Coming too, but Feel the Sun especially, I thought that ended the song in a really good way. Then we got Talk More Talk. I thought that was rubbish. Footprints was okay. I wanted to like it, but didn't much like it at first. But Only Love Remains, kind of like traditional McCartney to me. Beautiful strings, piano ballad, beautiful. You can't fail when he does that. Press I thought was really good, exciting, super catchy, very heavy on the 80s production, but I didn't mind that. And then that's followed by Pretty Little Head, which I thought was so strange, really weird, but I liked it. Move Over Busker, I didn't like the lyrics. Angry I thought was rubbish. And then However Absurd, which again I thought was a little bit odd. I wanted to like it, but didn't like it that much, but there was something there. And then you've got these final three tracks, which I now know to be bonus tracks, but when I first heard the album, I simply thought that they were part of the album. And I love these three tracks. Right away I thought was a toe-tapping delight. It's Not True, big drums, big chorus. I really love that. And Tough on the Tightrope at the end, which I thought was a really nice way to end the album and a really good song. But again, I had to admit to myself that Press to Play was uneven. It felt like one good song, one not so good song. So they were my first impressions of my first 6 post-Beatles Paul albums: Two Wings, 4 Solo. Bar Band on the Run and Ram, I didn't think that these were great albums, but certainly there was enough good songs there to keep me happy. And you do grow to love these albums. Well, I certainly have. And the critics will sharpen their pencils and get their poisonous pens at the ready, but these aren't albums that can be summed up after merely one listen. There's so much going on in these songs, so much to discover. You simply have to give them listening time. And of course, you could say that about a lot of albums, but with these albums in particular, I think it's certainly true. I return to these albums more than any other albums, including the Beatles. Honestly, I think I've listened to McCartney 2 more than I've listened to Rubber Soul. I think I've listened to London Town more than I've listened to Revolver. Why that is, I'm not even entirely sure. I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that McCartney 2 is better than Rubber Soul, nor London Town being better than Revolver. They're not. But I'm a huge fan of the White Album, and having collected all of Paul McCartney's albums and listened to them countless times over the years, I've come up with the conclusion that Paul McCartney's post-Beatles career is one big, giant White Album. And I guess that I had to agree with some of the critics at times, because I think if you take these albums on first or second listen, then you might think, yeah, I can't really be bothered with that. That's not that great. But listen 4, 5, 6 times and these melodies start to jump out and catch your ear, and I've been in love with them ever since. They're not perfect, but I think the point is they're not meant to be. This is often Paul goofing around, following his muse and seeing where it takes him and having fun with it. He always says that, and I think that people think, yeah, but you're Paul McCartney, you know, it has to be ultra serious. It doesn't. I mean, it may have sounded like I gave McCartney 2 a pretty harsh review there, and that was my first impressions of it. But I'm sure that McCartney 2 is the post-Beatles Paul album that I've played more than any other. It's not my favourite, that would be Ram, but whenever I think about McCartney 2, especially, I'm always excited to hear it again. I've even come round to Bogey Music. Don't get me wrong, it's my least favourite song on the album, but I love the rest of McCartney 2. I think it's pretty perfect in the strangest kind of way. And I've grown to love these other albums so much through the years. Quick ranking of these albums out of 10. I'll go Red Rose Speedway, 8.5, love it. Band on the Run, 9 to 9.5, a great album, of course. London Town, 9. McCartney 2, 9, 9.5. It isn't that great, but I absolutely adore it. Ram, wow, 9.5, if not a 10 on its day. Press to Play, 7.5 to 8. So as you can see, I am hopelessly biased, but what can I say? I love Paul McCartney and everything he does, good and bad. So they were my first impressions, and I'd love to know yours. What was your first post-Beatles Paul album, and what did you think of it? What about the second and third albums? Did you like them immediately, or like me, did you grow with them through the years and eventually love them? Please leave any thoughts and comments down below. And as always, thank you so much for stopping by and watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and of course I'll see you very soon for my next one. Bye for now.